Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about all of the books that I read in the month of June and kind of my thoughts about them. Would I recommend them? Did I enjoy them? And all of that. So if you'd be interested to see all the books that I read in the month of June, then go ahead and keep watching. So it is now July the 5th. And some of these books I don't remember a whole lot about, but I do have on my Notion, I do have a monthly tracker of the book that I read, whether I read it on physical book, Kindle book, audiobook, all that kind of stuff, my rating, the author, the day that I completed it, and then my comments. So I'm going to be referring back to my iPad so I can check out my Notion just to kind of help me refresh my memory on what I read. But for the month of June, let's get some stats. So I don't have the genres. I probably am going to do that in 2025. I'm going to update this and actually have a listing, have the book with the genre there just so I can have that information. But for the month of June, I ended up reading 12 books and the average rating was a 4.29. So overall, I feel like I had a really good reading month. So we're going to start from the first book that I read to the most recent. And so the first book that I read in the month of June was Masters of Death by Olivia Blake. This was the first book that I've ever read of hers. I wanted to read this because I have the Atlas 6 that has been on my bookshelf for months and I am terrified of that book. I don't know why. I am going to read it because I do plan on doing a video in August, September of reading dark academia books. And so I'm going to read that, but I wanted to read another Olivia Blake book first before I jumped into that, just so I can kind of figure out her writing style, if I even enjoyed the books and all that kind of stuff. And this one had an interesting premise. So it starts out with a realtor who is trying to sell a house, but the house that she's trying to sell is currently haunted and she is able to see the ghost. And so she decides to contact a medium who is also the godson of death to help get rid of this ghost so that way she can sell out this house, because the ghost does not want people to move in. He is making it very difficult for her whenever she shows the house. So that's kind of the premise. Now, I ended up giving this book 3.75. And the reason behind it was that synopsis that I just said was in the book sleeve. But what actually goes on in the book is not. It is somewhat related, but it takes a turn. And I wasn't expecting it. But the biggest thing that I had was there were so many characters. So I'm going to name some of the characters that that are talked in here. And I really don't even remember who some of these characters are, but I did type them out because it got to where I needed to keep track of who was being talked about. So you had Viola, realtor, who I just mentioned, Fox, who is the medium, also godson of death, and then you have Tom, who is the ghost. So those are the three that you know offhand. From the get-go, those are your three characters. But then you have Brant, Isis, Cal, Myra, Volos, Death, obviously. And then you also have supporting characters, Gabriel, Raphael, and Lainey. So there are, and I think there's even more, honestly. But there was so many characters that kind of were intertwined in this story that it just got to be too much, and it wasn't what I expected. It was a good book. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't what I anticipated, and there was just so many characters. That was my biggest thought on this book, was way too many characters. So 3.75. I am excited to read Atlas 6 now that I kind of get my first Olivia Blake book kind of out of the way, and so not as scared to read that book in the future. So then the next book that I read in June was Bride. This was a new release that came out, I think, in April or May. I wasn't able to get to it until June. And I ended up giving this a 4.75. I actually really enjoyed this. So this one had Low and Misery. Low is the werewolf, and Misery is like the daughter who is basically told that she is going to marry Lo, so that way they can kind of unite the vampires and the werewolves together. And I really enjoyed it. So Lo was very standoffish. He wasn't, he was very closed. He didn't really want to say a whole lot. And I like to see the relationship how it evolved. It was not a 5-star, so I had never read a werewolf romance. And I don't know if this is true in other werewolf romances, but the reason why it wasn't 5-star was because I didn't understand the knot. So I don't know if that's going to be a thing that's going to happen in other werewolf books. I do want to explore werewolf romance and like that type of thing, an alpha romance or alpha omega type thing. So I do want to read more, but I didn't understand that. I really did enjoy the book. The next book that I read was another new release. This was Leather and Lark. This is the second book of the Ruinous Love trilogy. The first book is Butcher and Blackbird. This one follows Lark, who is a singer and also she calls herself a serial deleter. She doesn't like to be called a serial killer. She refers to herself as a deleter. And then you have Lachlan, who is a like hired assassin type thing. And so they have a marriage of convenience type thing. And I ended up giving this one 4.5. Now, I read this and also listened to it on audio, and I might have actually scored it higher if I didn't listen to it on audio. So I'm kind of mixed when it comes to the audio version of this book. So I did enjoy it because Lachlan is like Irish or Scottish or whatever, and I don't know if I just didn't catch that in Butcher and Blackbird, because Lachlan and the male character, I cannot remember his name in Butcher and Blackbird, they're brothers. And then the third book is going to be, the third book in the series coming out is going to be The Last Brother. So, but they're all, I guess, Scottish, and I don't know if I remembered that because the first book I read just physical. So I did enjoy the audio version of this book because I really did like to hear the Scottish, and it is a dual narration. So you have a male character who speaks for the male, for Lachlan, and then you have the female character who speaks for Lark. And so I did enjoy the duet and the dual narration, but the problem with the narration is Lark giggled so much. And I think when I read her, like in the physical book, when I'm reading her like statements or her like quotes or her speaking pieces, when I read she giggled or she replied giggling, I don't in my mind think of her giggling. Like I don't think that when I'm reading the book. But when you have the audio version, it actually does giggle. Like she does giggle. And I got so annoyed by how much she giggled, and it drove me crazy. And then the other thing that I did not like about the audio version of this is Lark is a singer, and when she sings a lot, and I don't want to hear her sing, honestly. Like the songs, there was a full song. Like there's a section in here where she is at a like concert or whatever, and Lachlan is in the audience, but she is singing a legit full-blown song. And if I would have just read it, I would have skipped over the entire song. Like pages of this full song, I would have skipped. But I listened to it on the audio version, and I didn't like it. So those are the two negatives that I had for this book, is for the audio version specifically. Couldn't stand the giggling, and she broke out in song a lot. But then also what I did not enjoy is the very beginning of this book kicks off with Lark like going after these men. She's doing her serial deleter type situation, which is felt all well and good. I liked her character and like her funniness and like the things that she was saying when she was like holding these men like captive and things. It was funny. Like some of the things that she said were hilarious. But then I don't know what it just like it stopped. And then that piece of her like serial deleter, like I'm a serial killer, it was only for like until they got married. Basically, as soon as they got married, that never really came, I mean, it came up, but it wasn't as intense like what I originally envisioned this book to be. So I envisioned this book to be kind of like Butcher and Blackbird, where it was two serial killers killing serial killers. Like that was Butcher and Blackbird. And when I read this was it said a contract killer, Lachlan, and then you have the indie singer-songwriter Lark, and then, but Lark is I guess it doesn't say on the back, but it starts out in like chapter 1, it's literally chapter 1, the prologue, it has her killing somebody. So like from the jump, I anticipated this to be kind of a serial killer, so killing serial killer type thing, but I don't know, it just fell off. And I was excited about the first piece of like Lark's like personality at the beginning of this book, and I was just kind of upset that it didn't continue. So, I don't know. It was still good. I still enjoyed it, but I definitely liked Butcher and Blackbird better. So this was 4.5, and it might have actually been a 4.75 if I had not have listened to the audio, because I would have disregarded the giggling and the singing, but I couldn't. In my brain, now this book is always got giggling. Like giggling is always in the background when I see this book, so I think I'm traumatized when it comes to the audiobook with this book. Then the next book that I read was A Curious Beginnings by Deanna Rayburn. This is the book 1 of the Veronica Speedwell mystery series, and I think there's probably like 9 of them now. I ended up giving this 3.75. Now, that's not to say it's a bad book. So I fully expect book 1, specifically of longer series. A lot of times books 1s are not my favorite because you're having to establish the characters, you're having to establish like the plot and like all of that kind of stuff. So a lot of times the first book of a longer series is hard for me to get my attention and like grasp it and hold it. There obviously is books that is not the case, but that's kind of what happened here. So this one is a mystery / romance, and you have Stoker and you have Veronica. So Veronica obviously is the main character, and then Stoker is a person that she kind of fell into. Like she got left at Stoker's like workshop by some strange man after Veronica's like her last living family member passes away. And so she was basically picked up and said, you know, I'm going to take you to your next person, whatever. And he drops her off at Stoker's workshop and was like, you're going to be safe with him for right now. You know, I'll tell you as much as I possibly can about your family and all the mysteries and things that are happening behind the scenes that you don't understand. I'll talk about that later. And that person ends up dying. And it just kind of becomes like a snowball effect of what's happening. Why is it happening to Veronica? Why are these people trying to now like kill Veronica? Like they're going after her. She has no idea why. And so it's a build up of the storyline. So I ended up giving this 3.75, and it was mostly just because it was that build up. And I know in later books there's like a little bit of like romantic tension between Stoker and Veronica, but it's not obviously really, really strong because this is book 1 and they've just met. So I'm hopeful that that's going to evolve, and I am interested to pick up the rest of the series. This actually was a quick read. I did enjoy it, and it was interesting. I enjoyed it. I'm excited to continue the series. So this was 3.75, a nice little mystery young adult. I think it was a young adult book, but yeah, 3.75, pretty good. All right, and then the next book that I read was God of War, and I read that off of Kindle. Now, this one again I have mixed feelings with. So I ended up giving this 4.5. This was a 4.5, and this was another one where people either really, really liked it or couldn't stand it. And I understand both. So I understand the people who are like, this is horrible, this is like a 2-star, what the heck. I understand those people, because the reason why I dropped it to 4.5 from a 5-star was because this was the last book of the Legacy of God series, and this is like book 6. So in all of the other books, they all were at a college. They all kind of followed the same timeline. They overwove, like the timeline of one book was the same as the same timeline of a different book. It was just different perspectives and different things were kind of going on. But it all were like following the same timeline, and you had all the characters were in each of the books. So you had, everybody was showing up in these books, which was great. I really enjoyed it because there were certain characters in the Legacy of God series that I really did enjoy. So the problem with God of War, though, was that this book occurred like 2 years afterwards. So this is the timeline of this book is everyone has already graduated college. They all are living like on their own. Like some people live in England, some people live in DC or New York, and like they're all spaced out separately. You don't really see them very much. Like they are very on their own. So that was the big thing that I did not enjoy, because I was really hoping it was going to follow the same timeline, because I really did like the story of them being in college and then having like that fraternity, the houses that the characters belonged in. Like you had 2 separate like fraternity type houses, and then the college atmosphere. I really did enjoy it. And this one took you completely away. Like it was not anywhere, and it was not involved in that at all. And I didn't enjoy it. It made me kind of upset that I wasn't in the same timeline. And I felt like the very last book of a series should kind of follow the same type of tone as the previous book. So it was kind of disappointing on that. The other thing that I know a lot of people did not like about this book was there is a like amnesia trope. And I have never read the amnesia trope before, and so I didn't dislike it. But it did get annoying because like you knew something was happening, and you were like, when you were in Ava's perspective, you knew she was missing something and you just didn't know what it was. And it got annoying for me sometimes to read her story, just because you knew you were missing something, and it annoyed me a little bit. But I didn't like that piece. But I will say, I did enjoy seeing kind of Eli's character at the beginning of the book, and then when you get to the end of the book, you kind of see you understand Eli and like what he did and why he did it. You understand his character, and it was good to actually see all of the things that the like hard decisions that he was making for Ava. Even though people hated it, like he was actually doing things for Ava to help better her, whereas everyone else was kind of like more they didn't want to make those hard decisions, so they were making the easy choices because it would put less stress on Ava, but in the long run it really didn't help her. So I did really enjoy seeing Eli at the end, and all of the stuff, and all of like the love and the steps that he took and the struggles that he took upon himself to make Ava's life better. So, but that was God of War. I gave it 4.5. I did enjoy it. I definitely would have much rather liked to read that book if they were in the college setting still. Then the next book that I read was Hello Stranger by Catherine Center. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. Now this was Sadie and Joe. Now, I have a video where I talk about this book, and I still feel the same way. So I enjoyed the relationship between Sadie and Joe, and how like things, how he took upon himself, like the things he did to help her out. Because Sadie is a portrait artist, and she had just like gotten to be one of the top 10 finalists of this really, really, really prestigious like portraits contest. And after she was not told that she was one of the top 10 finalists, she has an accident and she develops facial blindness. They don't know if it's permanent facial blindness, if it's temporary, like if it's going to come back completely, or how that kind of works. One, I had no idea that was a thing. That's terrifying. And then 2, it really sucks because she's a portrait artist. Like if you can't see faces and your job is drawing faces, it's kind of a big deal. So I really did like how Joe stepped up and did everything he possibly could do to make Sadie as comfortable and kind of get her help and like do all the things that he needs to do to kind of help her out. So I liked Joe. The problem with this book was I couldn't relate to Sadie. So I have two I have two split feelings again with this character. So on one hand, Sadie is someone who does not like to ask for help. She likes to be very independent. She doesn't want any of that. That is me. I hate asking for help, and that is Sadie. So I can get her personality on that. The part that I could not get into, though, is she is very delusional when it comes to relationships. So the problem I have is after her thing that happened, her accident, her friend took her dog to be boarded at a vet because she was in the hospital for over a week. And so when she went to the vet to pick up her dog, she meets the vet. She can't see his face. She just hears she hears his how he speaks, his tone, and then how he walks. And she sees him, and her reaction is, that's my future husband. We are in love type thing. She goes to the deep end when it comes to how she thinks of this character. And throughout the book, that's how she is. He actually asks her out on a date because she has to go back to the vet because her dog gets sick. And while he's there, or while she's there, the vet does ask her out on a date. He does not show up. And still, she still thinks, it's a thing. That's, whatever. But then even at the very end of the book, so they have still not gone on a date because he doesn't show up to her date. And still at the end of the book, she ends up kissing somebody and she feels guilty for kissing this person. And immediately she's just like, I cheated on the vet. She cheated on the vet. And she feels so guilty. She goes back to the vet to tell him that she cannot have a relationship with this, the vet because she met this other person who she actually ended up kissing. And she breaks up with the vet who she's never been on a date with. So I didn't get that piece. That was very delusional, and I've never had, I don't think that way, and I just couldn't understand where she was coming from. But the not asking for anything piece, I could understand. So, but this was a good book. It did have some funny pieces in it. It was a very cute romance. I did enjoy it. I am super excited to read the rom-commers. I haven't read it yet, but I do plan on reading it very soon. So it is actually on my July TBR, I think. But that's one of the books that I do plan on reading within the next couple of months. So, but this one was 4 stars. It was really good. I did enjoy it. So, all right. Now, the next 5 books I don't have because they are the 5 books of the Mindfck series. Now, I can't really say a whole lot about the series. I also do have a video of me reading the series, and I kind of give you my thoughts on me reading it. I will say, overall, it's a 5-star series. I enjoyed it. I did end up rating each book individually, though. So I have book 1, which is The Risk. I gave 4.5. Book 2 is Sidetracked. I also gave 4.5. Scarlet is book 3. I gave a 4-star. Book 4 is All the Lies. I gave it 4.5. And then book 5 is Painted All Red, and I gave that 5 stars. So overall, really enjoyed the book. I gave it a 5-star series. It was really good. I did enjoy Lana and Logan. So this is if you've not heard about Mindfck, where are you? But this is a dark romance, and it is a story about Lana, who is a serial killer. She is going after these men that did something horrible to her in the past. And so she is a serial killer. And then she ends up dating the FBI agent on the case of her. He is trying to catch her. But he doesn't know, Logan does not know that Lana is actually the serial killer, because Lana was smart enough that every time she goes after these men, she wears a book bag filled with rocks or weights or whatever, a front and a back book bag. She wears a extra large boot. She's learned to when she walks, because a lot of times when you're wearing shoes that are too big, you kind of stomp, you kind of do this because you don't have the natural heel to toe movement when you're wearing a shoe size that's way too big. But she has trained herself to do that. So she has made herself look like she should be a 6'1", 200 and something pound man going after, you know, and killing these other people, when actually she is like a 5 foot, 100-pound girl. But the whole story is basically that. She is going after these people, killing them, and Logan is on the hunt to try to catch her, not realizing that the person that he ends up falling in love with is actually the person who's doing all these killing. So overall, very, very good. There was book 3 that I ended up not liking as much as the rest. I felt like it kind of was the storyline went from like the location changed. So the first couple of books were them in like the Virginia, DC area. And then books 4 and 5 were at a different location, of like the hometown of where this thing happened with Lana. Is at that location. But book 3 was kind of them going from, you know, transitioning from DC, Virginia area to going to this other location. So I felt like there was like a little bit of a lag in book 3. It was still, everything was very fast paced. All of the books in the Mindfck series, these separate individual books that you can get on Kindle Unlimited, are only like 100 to 130 pages each. So you can get through them really fast, and because of that, they are very, very fast paced. But it was a really good book. 5-star series, loved it. And then the last book that I read in the month of June was People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. Now this is, I think, the third, 1, 2, 3, this would be the 4th book that I've read by Emily Henry. And I am not a huge Emily Henry fan, so I decided I wanted to pick up another Emily Henry book, and I picked up People We Meet on Vacation. Now this is probably the least favorite book of all of the Emily Henry books that I've kind of heard about. Most people, this is the bottom tier, like this is the bottom of the stack when it comes to Emily Henry book rankings, and I would agree. So I ended up giving this 3.75. Now, I also have a video of me reading this if you would like to see a little bit more, but the thing about this book is I did enjoy Poppy and Alex's relationship. So this is a friends to lovers type relationship, and I enjoy that. I like friends to lover tropes. Those are good books. I enjoy that trope. The problem that I had with this book was, so this book basically is a Poppy and Alex go on a summer vacation every year. They met in college, and after meeting in college, they developed a friendship and they started going on summer vacations together. And something happened in Croatia. It was an annual trip, and this trip went to Croatia. Something happened, and ever since Croatia, they had stopped talking. And it had been like 2 years when they had stopped talking. The problem I have is this book goes from past to present timelines, and I opened this exact chapter in my video. So it goes past to present. The problem is they go to past, and it's every summer. So this one, like chapter 10, was 10 summers ago, and then you hear what they did 10 summers ago. And sometimes what they do in their past summers doesn't have any bearing on what's going on now. Like, it's not even something that is needing to be discussed, like, oh, we're gonna go to wherever they're gonna go to, you know, Paris, I don't know, they're gonna go to New Orleans, and then, you know, something happens and it really wasn't anything big. Like this one, chapter 17, is 7 summers ago, and it's just, I felt like the past summers I didn't need. I just didn't care. So I don't know, I got tired whenever it went into the past. I got bummed in that chapter. I liked it better when it was this summer. But like going from 10 summers ago to 6 summers ago to 4 summers ago, that's this summer. And then this summer, 3 summers ago. It's just, I got tired. I was counting down when we were actually going to find out what happened 2 summers ago in Croatia. Like that's really the only summer I cared about, was I wanted to know what happened in Croatia to make everything fall apart. So it was good if it wasn't for the past summers. Like, give me less of the past summers and I probably would have liked it better. But I know you needed some of the summers so that you could kind of establish the relationship. But I got tired of all the past pieces. So 3.75, but I did really enjoy the relationship between Poppy and Alex. I can definitely see why people think this is the least favorite of all of the Emily Henry books. So that is all of my June reads. Like I said, I think overall it was a really good reading month. I did have a lot of good books that I was excited to read, and I'm glad I finally did read. And so, yeah. So with that, thank you so much for watching. If you've not subscribed, please make sure you do so. I would greatly appreciate it. And I will see you in my next video. Bye!